Hey there. Welcome to Nook Bedtime. I'm here to help you relax tonight. So before we begin, make sure you're comfortable. Maybe dim your lights, grab a blanket, and let the night settle in around you. Because tonight's story is one I've never really told before. It's about a Halloween that still keeps me awake sometimes. It started like any other October night in our small town. The air was cool and smelled faintly of burning leaves. The streets were full of kids in costumes, laughter echoing between houses lit up with orange and purple lights. Jack-o'-lanterns lined every porch, flickering like tiny hearts in the dark. Me and my two friends, I'll call them Sam and Lila, had been out trick-or-treating for a while. We were maybe 13, old enough to feel brave, but still young enough to do stupid things. The kind of age where fear feels like fun. We had pillowcases full of candy, our sneakers crunching over fallen leaves as we walked toward the edge of town. That's where the normal houses ended and where the stories began. I don't even remember who brought it up first, but it started as a joke. Someone mentioned the house at the end of Willow Creek Road. Everyone in town knew about it. The old abandoned place with broken windows and that rusted gate that squealed every time the wind touched it. People said it used to belong to a woman named Marjorie Crane, who vanished 50 years ago. They said she still roamed the house at night, looking for her missing daughter. Of course, we didn't believe it. Nobody really did. But every Halloween, someone would dare someone else to go knock on the front door. Nobody ever lasted more than a few minutes. So when Sam said, "Let's go there tonight," I laughed, but my stomach tightened. It was that kind of nervous excitement that sits right between thrill and fear. Lila frowned right away. "Come on, guys, not that place," she said. "It's just old, probably full of rats and broken floors." But Sam smirked. "What, you scared of ghosts?" That's how it started. One stupid dare. One night that should have been harmless. The wind picked up then, the kind that makes dry leaves swirl in tiny circles on the road. The street lights buzzed faintly overhead. In the distance, I could see the curve of Willow Creek Road disappearing into darkness, like it was waiting for us. "Okay," I said finally, "let's do it. But just for a few minutes." Sam grinned. Lila rolled her eyes, and I felt that weird rush of adrenaline that only Halloween can give you. Like the world is balanced between the living and the dead. And for one night, anything could happen. We dumped some of our candy into our bags, took a quick sip from a soda bottle, and started walking toward the end of the street. The laughter faded behind us. The air grew colder, and as the last porch light disappeared in the distance, I swear I felt the first stir of something watching. Quiet, patient, waiting for us to arrive. We'd only been walking a few minutes, but it already felt like we'd crossed some invisible line, the kind that separates the safe part of town from something else. The houses thinned out one by one until there were none left, just empty lots and overgrown yards. The moon hung low above the treetops, pale and distant, almost like it didn't want to see what we were doing. None of us talked for a while. You could hear the gravel crunch under our shoes, the occasional rustle of dry branches, and somewhere far away, a dog barking like it knew something we didn't. Finally, Lila broke the silence. "Are we actually doing this?" she asked, hugging her candy bag to her chest. Sam laughed softly. "Come on. It's just the house. We'll go up, look around, maybe knock on the door and come right back." "Yeah, I said, trying to sound confident even though my stomach felt tight. In and out. 5 minutes tops. But even saying it didn't make me feel better. The closer we got, the quieter everything seemed to become. Even the wind stopped. I could see the black shape of the house through the trees now. Tall, crooked, and half swallowed by vines. Its windows were like dark eyes, watching us from a distance. We stopped at the old metal gate. It leaned at an angle, covered in rust and dead ivy. A faded "and no trespassing" sign hung crookedly by one nail. Sam gave it a little push, and it groaned open like it hadn't moved in years. I remember that sound so clearly, it echoed in my chest, long and drawn out, almost human. "Okay," Sam said, grinning. We go in through the front, take a look around, and whoever chickens out first owes the other two a whole pillowcase of candy. "Deal," I said, even though I didn't like the way the words felt leaving my mouth. Lila didn't say anything. She just stood there, looking up at the house. The moonlight caught her face, pale and still. "You guys, do you hear that?" she whispered. We paused. There was nothing at first. Just silence. Then a faint tapping. Slow, steady, coming from inside the house. Tap, tap, tap. "Probably the wind," Sam said quickly, though his voice didn't sound so sure. But the windows were all shut, and I could have sworn that tapping sounded like footsteps. We all exchanged a look. For a second, I thought we'd turn around, go back home, forget the whole thing. But Sam smiled again, that stupid, fearless grin. "Come on, don't tell me you're scared already." And just like that, he pushed open the gate the rest of the way and stepped through. Lila groaned, whispering something under her breath, but followed. And me, I hesitated for just a second, long enough to feel that chill run up my back, before taking a deep breath and stepping in after them. The gate creaked shut behind us, and I swear, it sounded like it locked itself. You ever walk somewhere at night that you've seen 100 times during the day, but suddenly it feels like a completely different place? That's what Willow Creek Road was like that Halloween night. I'd ridden my bike down that street plenty of times before, on bright summer days, with the sun glowing through the trees and the sound of birds echoing in the distance. But at night, everything changed. The trees looked taller, their branches tangled together above us like claws, shutting out half the moonlight. The air smelled like cold dirt and wet leaves. And the silence, that was the worst part. Our shoes crunched softly on the gravel. Every step sounded way too loud, like we were walking through someone's home without permission. Sam walked ahead, holding his flashlight like a sword. Lila stayed close behind me, her hand brushing my jacket every few steps. I could feel her nervous energy, the kind that made her jump at every sound. "You think anyone still lives here?" she whispered. I shook my head. "No one's lived here since the 70s. "That's what you said about that old factory," she replied, her voice trembling a bit. "And remember what happened there?" Sam laughed under his breath. "That wasn't a ghost, Lila. That was a raccoon." "Yeah, a raccoon that threw a wrench at us?" He didn't answer, and I didn't laugh, because the closer we got to the end of the road, the more uneasy I started to feel too. The pavement ended abruptly, turning into a thin dirt path swallowed by weeds. The air grew colder here, and my breath started to fog up in front of me. The flashlight beam caught floating dust, and for a second, it almost looked like snow. "There it is," Sam said quietly. Through the trees, I could finally see it, the house at the end of Willow Creek. It looked bigger than I remembered. 3 stories tall, though the top floor leaned slightly, like it was trying to collapse in on itself. The paint had peeled off so badly that it was more gray than white now. One of the shutters dangled by a single hinge, creaking softly as the wind blew through. And even though there were no lights on, I swear I could feel something watching us from those empty windows. We stopped just outside the front gate. The air was so still that when I exhaled, I could actually hear my breath. "Okay," Sam said, forcing a grin. 5 minutes. Then we can all brag about it at school on Monday." He started walking toward the gate, but something made me grab his arm. "Wait," I said. "Look." At first, he didn't see it, but when I pointed, his expression changed. There, right under the gate latch, were small handprints. Dusty, faded, too small to be an adult's, too fresh to be old. Lila covered her mouth. "Are those kids' prints?" I said softly. Sam tried to laugh it off. "Probably from other kids sneaking in. People come here all the time." But when he reached for the gate, the metal was so cold it made him flinch. "Damn," he muttered, shaking his hand. "It's freezing." I looked at the gate again, and that's when I noticed something else. There were words scratched into the top bar, hard to read in the dark. But once my flashlight hit them, I made them out clearly. "Don't open. She hears you." My mouth went dry. Lila took a step back. "Okay, nope. Nope. We're not doing this." But Sam just smiled, a little too wide this time. Probably just some dumb kids trying to freak people out. He pushed the gate open. The metal shrieked a long, pained cry that made every hair on my arm stand up. The sound echoed through the trees, and for a moment I thought I heard something answer. Not an echo, more like a whisper. Just one word, soft and drawn out. "Come." Lila froze. "Did you hear that?" I swallowed hard. "The wind," I said quickly. "It's just the wind." But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. Sam was already halfway up the path now, his flashlight beam bouncing across the weeds. I took a deep breath, told myself it was just an old house, and followed. The path curved slightly uphill. On either side, the trees grew thicker, their shadows stretching long and thin over the ground. Somewhere behind us, I heard a twig snap, quick, like a footstep, but when I turned around, there was no one there. Just darkness. When we reached the porch, the boards creaked under our weight. A spider web brushed against my face, and I swatted it away, feeling my heart thump faster than it should have. The front door stood there, huge, old, and slightly open, just enough that I could see the blackness inside. Lila whispered, "Did someone leave it open?" Sam shook his head. "No, it's been like that for years." He stepped forward and pushed it gently with his hand. The hinges groaned like they were alive, and that's when it happened. From deep inside the house, far beyond what our flashlights could reach, came a faint sound, like a soft dragging noise, something heavy being pulled across the floor. We all froze. Sam's voice dropped to a whisper. "Did you hear that?" I nodded. "Yeah." Then silence again, and the door, which had been slightly open, slowly began to close. Not from the wind, not from us. It moved with purpose. And when it finally clicked shut, all at once, every single light on the porch flickered to life. Old, dim yellow bulbs that hadn't worked in decades. Lila screamed. Sam jumped back. And I just stood there, staring at that closed door, realizing something I'd been trying not to think about since the second we stepped off the road. We hadn't come to this house. It had called us here. If you've ever stood in front of a door that felt wrong, you'll know what I mean when I say that this one breathed. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the wood creaking. It was something deeper. Like the house itself was waiting. For us. Sam stood closest to the door, his flashlight beam trembling slightly as he reached for the handle. Lila grabbed my arm and whispered, "Don't. Please don't." Her voice cracked on that last word, and for a second, I thought Sam might actually listen. But then the porch light above us flickered once, twice, and the faint hum of electricity filled the air. He looked back at me and said quietly, "You ready?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. He turned the handle, and the door opened. Slowly, the air that came out of that house was cold, colder than the air outside. It smelled of dust, old wood, and something else, something faintly metallic. My flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing the first few feet of a hallway. The wallpaper had peeled off in long strips, hanging like torn skin. The floorboards were warped and darkened, and every step made a hollow echo that went on a little too long. Sam took the first step inside. The beam of his flashlight swung left and right, lighting up a staircase, a cracked picture frame, and what looked like a child's shoe lying by the baseboard. "See," he said softly, "just an old house." Lila stayed on the porch. She was clutching her candy bag, so tight her knuckles were white. "I'm not going in there," she said. I hesitated for a second. Then I took a deep breath and stepped in after Sam. The floor groaned beneath me, the sound echoing like a sigh through the hall. Lila lingered in the doorway, torn between following and running. "Guys," she whispered. "What?" I asked, turning back. She pointed past me, at the wall. I aimed my flashlight where she was looking. There were scratch marks on the wallpaper, deep, uneven grooves that ran all the way down to the floor. They looked almost like fingernail marks, desperate and wild. Sam frowned. "Probably rats or something. But rats don't scratch in words." When I leaned closer, I saw the faint shapes of letters carved beneath the paint. Just one word, over and over again, scratched so deep it cut through the plaster. "Stay, stay, stay." My throat tightened. Lila's breathing quickened behind me. "I told you we shouldn't." And then we heard it, a sound from deeper inside the house. Soft at first, like a hum. Then clearer, a woman's voice, low and slow, humming what sounded like a lullaby. It was the kind of melody you might hum to a child, gentle, rhythmic, almost soothing. But there was something off about it. Something too slow, too hollow. We all froze. Sam whispered, "There's someone here." But that couldn't be true. The house had been empty for 50 years. I turned off my flashlight for a second, just to listen. The darkness swallowed everything. The hum stopped, and then from the far end of the hallway, we heard a single footstep. Then another, slow, deliberate, coming closer. Lila whispered, "Let's go." "Please." Sam shook his head, whispering back, We can't just leave. Someone might. But he didn't finish, because the next sound wasn't footsteps anymore. It was breathing, right behind him. He spun around, shining his flashlight toward the noise, but there was nothing there. Just an empty doorway leading to another dark room. The beam of light flickered once, then twice, before cutting out completely. Darkness swallowed us. Lila screamed softly. I grabbed my own flashlight, fumbled for the switch, and when it flicked on again, Sam was gone. Just gone. The beam landed on the floor where he'd been standing, and there was his flashlight rolling slowly in a small circle as if he dropped it and backed away. Sam, I whispered. No answer. Sam, silence. Then, from the shadows beyond the hallway, the same voice again, humming that same broken lullaby. But this time it wasn't distant. It was right next to my ear. Hush now. I turned so fast my flashlight flew from my hand and hit the wall. There was no one there. Just the echo of that voice, fading slowly, drifting back into the dark. I reached down, grabbed the flashlight, and whispered, "We need to get out of here." But when I turned toward the door, toward the porch and the cool air outside, it was gone. The doorway we'd come through wasn't there anymore. Just a solid wall. There's a kind of silence that doesn't mean nothing's there. It means everything's listening. That's what it felt like inside that house. The air was thick, almost syrupy. Every breath I took felt heavy, like the oxygen itself didn't want to move. Lila stood close to me, whispering my name like it might disappear if she said it too loud. "Where's Sam?" she asked again, her voice trembling. I looked around, my flashlight cutting through the dust. The beam caught little floating specks that moved lazily in the air, almost like snow. But there was no sign of him, just the hallway, stretching longer than it had before. That's when I noticed it. The hallway wasn't the same length anymore. When we first entered, it was maybe 20 feet long, ending at a wooden door and a staircase. But now it went on farther, much farther. The walls seemed to bend, the perspective slightly off, like looking through a funhouse mirror. Lila grabbed my sleeve. "This is impossible. We didn't walk that far in." "I know," I whispered. "Just stay close." We started walking. My flashlight shook slightly, the beam jumping across torn wallpaper and cracked picture frames. Most of the photos inside were faded beyond recognition, but every now and then I caught the faint outline of faces, blurred, stretched, wrong. And in one frame, I swear the eyes weren't faded at all. They looked new, wet even, like someone had painted over them recently. The smell of the place started changing too. What had started as just dust and rot began to take on something sharper, a faint coppery tang that reminded me of blood. Lila's breathing quickened. "Do you smell that?" I nodded slowly, not wanting to say the word. Then came the sound, a faint scratching. It started behind the wall, low and slow, like nails dragging along wood. Then another sound joined it, whispers, too soft to make out words, but unmistakably human. Lila's voice broke. "There's someone in there." I pressed my ear to the wall. The whispers stopped instantly. Then, as if whoever was behind the wall realized we were listening, they started again. This time closer, right on the other side. "Help." The voice was soft, female, desperate. I stumbled back. "Did you hear that?" Lila nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. Someone's trapped, she whispered. Before I could say anything, there was a sudden bang from the end of the hallway, a door slamming shut. The sound rolled through the whole house like thunder. We both froze. My flashlight flickered, and when it came back on, I noticed something I hadn't before. There were muddy footprints on the floorboards, small, like a child's, leading away from us down the hall, toward the door that had just slammed. Those weren't there before, Lila said. I didn't answer. I couldn't, because something else caught my attention. Near one of the cracked picture frames, half hidden under a layer of dust, was a piece of paper, yellowed and torn. I knelt down and picked it up carefully. The handwriting was messy, rushed, but still legible. It read, "Don't follow her voice. She wants you to listen." I swallowed hard and shoved the note into my pocket. "We're leaving," I said. "We'll find another way out." Lila nodded quickly, but before we could turn, the sound came again. That same faint humming from earlier. It echoed softly through the hall, floating in from every direction. It wasn't coming from one room this time. It was coming from inside the walls. We stood there, frozen. The walls seemed to pulse faintly with the sound, like the house itself was breathing along with it. Then the whisper returned, this time louder. Downstairs, it wasn't a plea anymore. It was an invitation, and I realized it was coming from the floor. I lifted my flashlight, and sure enough, one of the floorboards near the end of the hallway had been pried loose, just slightly. Something underneath was moving. Lila whispered, "What's down there?" I didn't want to find out, but before I could stop her, she took a cautious step forward, crouched down, and touched the edge of the board. Instantly, she jerked her hand back with a gasp. "It's warm, warm," I repeated. She nodded, like something's alive down there. The humming stopped all at once. Then silence, the kind that presses against your eardrums, heavy and absolute. And then 3 soft knocks from beneath the floor. Knock, knock, knock. We both jumped back. The board shifted slightly, like something was pushing from underneath. That's when I realized what it was trying to do. It wasn't trying to get out. It was trying to open the way down. I don't think I breathed for a full minute after that. The house was silent again, the kind of silence that presses against your ribs. The floorboard that had moved was still trembling slightly, as if something below had just stepped back into the shadows. Lila's voice broke the stillness. We should find another way out. Not that way. Not the floor. I nodded quickly. My heart was hammering so hard it felt like the sound alone would wake the whole house. We started backing away down the hall, careful not to make the floor creak too much. My flashlight was dimming again, the beam growing weaker with every step. I tried tapping it against my palm. It flickered for a second and then steadied. That's when I noticed a thin trail of dust on the floor, like something had been dragged through it. It stretched ahead of us toward a corner where the hall turned sharply left. "Do you see that?" I whispered. Lila nodded. Maybe Sam went that way. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But deep down, I knew. Whatever left that trail wasn't walking upright. We turned the corner and found a set of stairs. They led downward into a darker part of the house. And at the top of those stairs, hanging by a single rusted hinge, was a door. It looked different from the rest. Thicker, older, almost like it didn't belong to this house. Carved into its surface were strange, swirling symbols, shapes I didn't recognize. Some looked like circles, others like eyes. They had been scratched so deep that the wood splintered around them. At the center of the door, written in what looked like black paint, was a single word. Below, Lila's hand found mine. Her fingers were ice cold. "This has to lead to the basement," she whispered. The humming started again. Soft at first, barely there. But this time, it wasn't coming from inside the walls. It was coming from behind the door. I took a step closer. My flashlight beam trembled across the carvings, the shadows twisting in ways that didn't make sense. They seemed to move against the light, reaching toward me instead of away. I tried the handle. It was cold and slick, almost greasy. When I turned it, it didn't move. Locked. Lila exhaled shakily. "Good. Let's not." Before she could finish, the door clicked. The lock turned itself. We both froze. Slowly, the handle began to turn on its own. Click, click, creak. The door eased open an inch, then another. The air that came out was foul, thick with rot, dust, and something else, something wet. I aimed the flashlight down the stairs. The beam didn't reach the bottom. It just vanished into pitch black nothingness. The humming grew louder, echoing up the staircase like it was coming from somewhere deep beneath the floor. Lila's voice cracked. "We're not going down there." I nodded, but part of me couldn't look away. There was something about that darkness. It wasn't just absence of light, it moved. Like smoke or water, curling at the edges, alive. Then just for a second, my flashlight caught something halfway down the stairs, a shape, pale and still, crouched against the wall. It looked like a person. Lila gasped. "Is that Sam?" "Maybe," I whispered. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't. Sam's hair was dark. This whatever it was had long, white hair that hung down over its face like wet thread. And it wasn't breathing. I swallowed hard. "We're leaving. Now." We turned to go, but the hallway behind us was gone. Just the door. Just the stairs. Just the sound. The humming had changed now. It wasn't a lullaby anymore. It was words. Below. 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 The light above the stairs flickered. A bulb that hadn't worked in years suddenly buzzing to life. And when it did, the pale shape moved. It raised its head. And though its face was hidden behind that tangled white hair, I saw its mouth, wide and trembling, moving in time with the chant. "Below. Below. Below." Lila screamed. I slammed the door shut with all my weight. The thud echoed through the hall, shaking dust loose from the ceiling. For a second, everything was still. Then something hit the door from the other side. Hard. Once. Twice. A third time, the wood splintering, the hinges groaning. We ran. Didn't think, didn't look back. Just ran down the hall as the pounding grew louder and louder. When we turned the next corner, the house seemed to stretch again. The walls pulsed faintly, and doors appeared on both sides. Doors that hadn't been there before. Every one of them whispered. Some softly, some urgently, but all of them said the same thing. Below. We reached the end of the corridor and nearly fell into an open room. What looked like a living room. if you could even call it that anymore. The wallpaper had been ripped away, revealing cracked plaster and strange symbols carved everywhere. Lila collapsed beside me, gasping. What is this place? I didn't answer, because on the far wall, written in something dark and sticky, were 5 words that made my stomach turn to ice. The basement is never empty. You ever notice how a house changes when you go below ground? Even in a normal home, the air gets stiller. Sound dies faster. Down there, you start to hear your own heartbeat. That's what it was like as we stood at the top of the basement stairs. The door we'd slammed shut in the last room now stood wide open again. No noise, no hinges creaking, just open, like it had been waiting for us to notice. A soft, steady draft drifted up from below. It smelled like old soil and iron, the kind of smell that makes your teeth ache if you breathe too deep. Lila whispered, "Please don't make me go down there." I wanted to tell her we wouldn't, that we'd find another way out. But behind us, the hallway was gone again, just an unbroken wall of peeling wallpaper. We didn't have a choice. I leaned forward, shining my flashlight down the steps. The beam cut through dust thick as smoke. Each stair looked half rotted, but still held its shape. The rail was gone. Only jagged nails stuck out where it used to be. "Stay right behind me," I said. Lila gripped the back of my jacket, and we started down. The first step groaned. The second screamed. The third didn't make a sound at all, and that somehow felt worse. Every breath echoed like it didn't belong to me. Somewhere beneath the sound of our footsteps, I thought I heard something else. The slow drag of something heavy moving farther below. Halfway down, I stopped to listen. The air changed again. It grew colder, not just cool, but wrong. Like the temperature wasn't dropping naturally, but being pulled out of the air. Lila shivered. "It's freezing. Keep moving," I whispered. "Almost there." When we reached the bottom, the flashlight beam caught the edge of a cement floor. The basement opened wide, bigger than I expected. Old shelves leaned against the walls, covered in thick cobwebs. There were glass jars everywhere, some empty, some filled with dark liquid I didn't recognize. And in the far corner, I saw something that made my stomach tighten. It was a table, small, wooden, old, and on it a single candle, burning. There was no wax on the floor, no matches nearby, nothing to suggest anyone had lit it recently. Yet the flame stood tall, steady, untouched by the air that swirled around us. Lila's whisper cracked. How is that still burning?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because behind the candle, scratched into the concrete wall, were lines. Hundreds of them. Some deep, some shallow, like someone had been counting days, years, maybe. I stepped closer, and then I saw it. Near the bottom of the wall, a section looked newer, fresh scratches, pale against the older, darker concrete. They spelled a word, my name, not just once, over and over again. Lila gasped. That's your name." My throat went dry. I backed up so fast my shoulder hit one of the shelves, sending a glass jar crashing to the floor. It shattered, spilling thick black liquid that smelled like rotten metal. From somewhere in the darkness beyond the candle, something shifted. A sound like fabric brushing against stone. "Hello," I whispered before I could stop myself. The candle flickered once, then steadied, and a voice, soft, almost kind, came from the shadows. "I knew you'd come back." Lila screamed. The light wavered violently, throwing shadows that twisted across the walls like reaching arms. I grabbed her hand. "Run!" We stumbled back toward the stairs, but they looked wrong now. Longer, steeper. The top seemed impossibly far away. Behind us, the voice grew clearer, still calm, but closer. "Don't go yet. You left something behind." The air filled with whispers, dozens of them, overlapping, spilling out of the cracks in the walls. The candle's flame stretched upward, bending toward us like it was reaching. Lila tripped, falling hard against the steps. I turned to help her up, but when I looked down, my flashlight caught the wall again. New words were appearing, scratching themselves into the concrete right before my eyes. "Stay, stay, stay." And below them, still forming letter by letter. You ever have a moment when you know, deep down, you shouldn't be seeing something? Like your brain's trying to protect you, telling you don't look, don't move, just leave, but your body won't listen? That's exactly what it felt like when I saw my name writing itself across that wall, letter by letter, each scrape echoing through the basement like nails on glass. Lila was shaking beside me, whispering, "This isn't real. This isn't real. This isn't real." But it was, because the wall wasn't done. The words spread further, curling downward, twisting into shapes that looked almost like handwriting, only wrong. Uneven, too jagged, and below the words came something worse. The outline of a handprint, small, delicate, pressed into the wall like it had been burned there, and under it my name again, this time carved deeper. I took a step closer. I don't even know why. Maybe I wanted to prove it was fake, to see wires or some trick of light. But when I reached out and brushed my fingers over the letters, it was warm, not the kind of warm you feel from heat. It felt alive, like the wall itself had a pulse. I jerked my hand back instantly. That's when I realized the candle wasn't the only light anymore. Faintly, across the room, something else was glowing. A dull, red shimmer leaking through a crack in the far wall. "Do you see that?" I whispered. Lila didn't answer. She was staring straight ahead, eyes wide, lips parted. Her flashlight had gone completely out. Mine was barely holding on. Then, softly from behind us, "You shouldn't have said your name." I spun around so fast I nearly dropped the light. No one there, just those same old shelves and broken jars. But the whisper came again, closer this time. "Once you speak it, she knows you." The beam of my flashlight flickered, and for a split second I saw her. A woman standing in the corner, her head tilted, her hair long and dripping wet, as if she just stepped out of a lake. Her dress, if that's what it was, hung in torn folds the color of ash. And her eyes, I swear they were completely white. The light blinked out. Everything went black. I heard Lila scream, short, sharp, and then something else. A whisper that wasn't quite human, circling us in the dark. The air turned heavy, pressing down like we were deep underwater. I tried to speak, but my throat locked up. When my flashlight finally sputtered back to life, the woman was gone. But the candle had moved. It was right next to us now, sitting on one of the steps. And it wasn't just one candle anymore. 2, 3, 4, each one flickering on by itself, leading up the staircase like a path. Lila whispered she wants us to leave, but the voice behind us said, softly, no, she wants you to remember. The basement began to creak. The shelves trembled. The jars started falling one by one, crashing open, spilling dark liquid that ran across the floor like blood. And through the noise, I heard another sound, something faint but familiar, a melody. It was the same lullaby my grandmother used to hum when I was a kid, the same one I hadn't heard in years. It came from the crack in the far wall, the one with the red glow behind it. I took a step toward it, even though every part of me screamed not to. Lila grabbed my arm. Don't. Please. Let's go. But I couldn't stop. Something about that song pulled me forward. The closer I got, the louder it became. Not music exactly, more like a voice humming. And just as I reached the wall, the light went out again. Total darkness. Then right next to my ear, so close I could feel her breath, came a whisper. I remember you. I froze. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. The air filled with cold. Not natural cold, something worse. Like it was being sucked out of me. I stumbled backward, dragging Lila with me toward the stairs. We ran. I didn't even look back. When we finally burst out of the basement and slammed the door shut behind us, the whole house seemed to sigh. The whispers stopped. The cold faded. For a moment, everything felt still again. Until I turned around and saw my own muddy handprint on the inside of the basement door. Fresh, like I just left it there. But the thing is, I didn't touch that door. You ever have that feeling after something terrifying, like your body's still in fight or flight mode, even when you think you're safe? That's what it felt like after we escaped the basement. Lila and I stood in the narrow hallway, both gasping for air. My flashlight was shaking so bad I had to hold it with both hands. The door behind us was shut again, completely still, like it hadn't been touched in years. I looked at Lila. We're getting out. Now. She nodded, but I could tell her mind wasn't fully here anymore. Her eyes were glassy, her lips moving silently, like she was still whispering to herself, the same way she had down there. We started walking toward the front of the house. The air felt heavier now. The temperature hadn't gone back up, it stayed cold, like the house itself was holding its breath. I kept checking my phone for signal. Nothing. Not even a flicker of service. And then, as we turned the corner toward what I thought was the foyer, it wasn't there. Instead, we stepped into a new hallway, one that shouldn't exist. The walls here looked clean, newer than the rest of the house. The wallpaper was pale and shiny, and the floor reflected our flashlight beams like polished glass. I frowned. This wasn't here before. Lila said nothing. She was staring ahead, jaw trembling. At the end of the hallway stood a door, tall, old-fashioned, and painted black. But the strange part wasn't the door. It was the reflection. Even though there was no mirror in sight, I could see the door reflected faintly on the floor, like we were walking on a giant pane of glass. As we got closer, the air began to hum. Not loud, just a low, vibrating sound, like a refrigerator or power line. I reached for the doorknob. It was cold, ice cold. When I pushed the door open, the humming stopped, and we stepped into a room that made no sense. Every wall was a mirror, floor to ceiling, for sides, perfectly reflective, except for one small space where a single wooden chair sat facing the middle. No dust, no dirt, just mirrors. The air inside was sharp, sterile, like a hospital corridor. My flashlight beam scattered across the glass, bouncing in every direction. I saw myself and Lila multiplied 100 times over, our faces pale, wide-eyed, frozen in identical terror. "I don't like this," Lila whispered. Neither did I. We tried not to move too much. Every shift of our feet made it look like the reflections were closing in. And then one of them didn't move with us. I didn't notice it at first, but as I turned my head, I saw it one reflection slightly delayed. It blinked slower than I did, and when I raised my flashlight, it didn't. I froze. "Lila, look at the far left mirror." She turned slowly, then her breath caught, because behind her reflection, just barely visible, was another shape. A woman, standing in the background. Her face was turned toward the floor, her hair hanging forward like wet strands of seaweed. Her hands were pressed flat against the glass, on her side of it. At first, I thought it was just another trick of the light. But then the glass fogged around her hands, like she was breathing against it. Lila grabbed my arm. "She's in there. She's inside the mirrors." The words made my stomach twist, because in that moment I realized something else. There wasn't just one of her. She was in every mirror. Each reflection showed her standing a little closer, a little clearer, a little more real. The air pressure changed, like the whole room was sinking. Lila backed up, nearly tripping over the chair. I caught her just in time, but when I looked down, the reflection of the chair wasn't there anymore. That's when I finally understood what was happening. The reflections weren't showing us the room as it was. They were showing us what the room wanted to be. The woman's reflection moved again, slowly raising her head, and for the first time we saw her face. Her eyes were white, completely drained of color. Her skin was cracked like porcelain, and from the corner of her mouth, something black dripped down her chin, slow as ink. She smiled. It was small at first, just a twitch of the lips, but it spread wider and wider until her jaw looked like it might split. Lila screamed. The mirrors began to shake violently, the sound deafening, like glass screaming in every direction. "Run!" I yelled, pulling her toward the door. But the door was gone. In its place, another mirror. And in that reflection, we saw something even worse. Ourselves, still standing in the middle of the room, still facing forward, but neither of us were moving. When I realized the door had vanished, my stomach dropped straight into my feet. We weren't just stuck. We were inside something. The room had changed while we weren't looking. The mirrors stretched higher, wider, wrapping around us like a cylinder. And in every one, the woman's face was closer now, her smile wider, slower, deliberate. I tried to grab Lila's hand, but my own reflection wasn't mine anymore. It moved differently. It tilted its head even when I didn't. Its eyes lingered on hers, following, studying, mocking. I yanked my hand back. "Lila, we have to break them." She shook her head. "We can't. Glass is endless here. I didn't want to believe her. I picked up the wooden chair from the center of the room, raised it, ready to smash the nearest mirror. Before I could swing, the glass rippled. Like water, the chair passed through the surface as if it weren't solid. And when I pulled it back, it was heavier. Not just heavy, but resisting me, almost alive. "Stop," Lila whispered, her voice shaking. "Just stop. You don't understand." I shook my head. "I'm not letting her, whatever she is, keep us here." But the reflections weren't listening. They moved independently. Our movements delayed, twisted, exaggerated. And then I saw it. Behind my reflection, behind the reflection of Lila, stood the woman. And she wasn't just in the mirror anymore. Her form was halfway out, fingers pressed flat against the surface, dripping black ink, or maybe blood, onto the mirrored floor. She stepped forward, but not in our space. Somehow in the reflection, her steps were real. I stumbled back, tripping over my own feet. And as I fell, the reflections multiplied. Hundreds of versions of us pinned in the center of the room. Lila screamed. I scrambled to her side. The woman's face appeared in every single one, closer each time, her mouth opening impossibly wide. And from it came a whisper, not soft this time, loud, commanding. "You cannot leave. You belong here." The mirrors pulsed. Walls rippled like liquid metal. I could see our real reflections somewhere beneath all the chaos, struggling to stay upright. But the reflections in front were different. Smiling, taunting, not us. "Pull me up," I yelled. Lila's hand was trembling in mine. Then something terrifying. A reflection of me stepped forward. It wasn't resisting. It wanted me. Its hands reached out. "Come back," it whispered in my own voice. I screamed. I grabbed Lila and ran toward a corner, any corner. But the room had no corners anymore. Just mirrors stretching in every direction. Every angle reflected infinite versions of ourselves, trapped, screaming silently, staring at the real us. And then I noticed it. Not all of the reflections were mirroring us. Some were standing behind us. The woman in them, closer now, moving her head, tilting it, watching, waiting. I realized then we weren't in a room anymore. We were inside her world, her rules, and we hadn't even touched the basement this time. I pulled Lila close. "We have to stay together, no matter what." The floor beneath our feet trembled. The mirrors warped again, stretching our reflections upward like shadows being pulled by chains. And from somewhere behind us, we heard soft tapping, feet, walking, not ours. We spun around. Nothing. The whispers returned. Hundreds of them, all overlapping. "Stay, stay, stay, stay." The temperature dropped sharply. My breath hung in the air in white clouds. Lila's lips were blue. And then, clear and cutting through the chaos, a single voice. Hers, my friend's, yet not. "You can't leave." I grabbed her arm. "Run." But we couldn't. No matter which way we went, the mirrors bent the space, looping us back toward the center. The woman's face filled every reflection. And then, just as suddenly, they blinked. Her eyes opened, white, empty, endless, and focused on me. "You stayed too long." And I realized in that instant that the house didn't just want to trap us. It didn't just want to scare us. It wanted to take us inside. The room tilted. Reflections shattered. The whispering became screaming. And in that infinite mirrored nightmare, I understood the truth. No matter what we did, there was no leaving. You ever notice how silence after terror feels louder than noise? That's what it felt like when the mirrors finally went still. No whispers, no flickering lights, no movement, just me and Lila, standing there, breathing too fast in a room that shouldn't exist. The mirrors around us stopped showing the woman. Now they only showed us, but something about the reflections felt wrong, like they were half a second too slow. I didn't care. I just wanted out. I found what looked like a door again, this time cracked slightly open, light spilling from the gap. Without thinking, I shoved it wide and pulled Lila through. We stumbled into another hallway, dark, narrow, lined with peeling green wallpaper. It smelled like damp earth and burnt candles. The air was thicker here, harder to breathe. But the house had changed again. It wasn't trying to scare us anymore. It felt like it was showing us something. We walked in silence for a long time. The floorboards groaned beneath each step, and every once in a while, we'd pass an old picture frame. Most were empty, but one of them still had a photo inside. A woman, mid-30s, maybe 40, stood in front of the Willow Creek House when it still looked new. She was smiling, but her eyes were wrong. There was something in them, something heavy, sad, and knowing. Lila spoke first. "That's her, isn't it? The woman everyone talks about," I said quietly. "The one who disappeared. They said she used to live alone here. No family, no husband, no visitors. The town called her a witch, claimed she used dark rituals to curse anyone who came near her land. A few people went missing, and she got blamed. One night she vanished, and the house went cold. I never believed the stories, until now. At the end of the hallway, we reached a door that looked different from the others. Wooden, solid, painted a faded blue. There was a strange symbol carved into it. A circle with a line through the middle, surrounded by smaller marks. It wasn't decorative. It looked like a seal. I hesitated. "Do we open it?" Lila just nodded. The door creaked as it swung inward, revealing a small room, almost like a study. The smell of old paper and candle wax hit immediately. Stacks of books lay scattered across the floor, along with broken glass bottles and melted candles stuck to the shelves. And on the table in the center sat a small, leather-bound book. It looked untouched. I walked over slowly, brushing dust off the cover. The leather was cracked, dark with age. On the front, faint gold letters spelled one word: Eleanor. The name sent a shiver through me. That was her name, the woman from the stories. I opened it. The first page was dated October 12th, 1874. The townsfolk came again today. They called me witch, devil, thief of souls. I told them the truth, that the ground beneath this house is older than them all, older than the creek, older than me. But they don't listen. My fingers tightened around the pages. The handwriting was messy, frantic in some places, perfectly neat in others. They think I made it haunt them. But the house chose me. It needed someone to keep it asleep. I was foolish to think I could leave. The words made my skin crawl. Lila leaned over my shoulder, whispering, "Keep reading." So I did. It speaks to me through the mirrors now. Says my name. Says it remembers. Says it wants to come back through. I sealed the basement, but I feel it moving. The wall breathes at night. If I fail, it will need someone new. It always needs someone new. I turn the page, careful not to tear it. The next entry was shorter. The whisper knows my name. It knows yours too. That line made my blood run cold. Lila looked at me, her face pale. What does she mean by that? I didn't answer, because as I read those words aloud, something happened. The candle on the table flickered to life. We both stepped back instinctively, and underneath the table, the floorboards began to creak. Slow, rhythmic, like footsteps from beneath. Lila grabbed my wrist. Please tell me that's not what I think it is. But I already knew. The diary wasn't just her confession. It was a warning. And the house wasn't haunted because of her. It was haunted through her. I looked down at the diary again. The ink on the page was moving. Letters shifting, rearranging themselves. The words changed right before my eyes. She's not gone. She's waiting. Look behind you. I turned, and there, in the mirror on the far wall, the same one we hadn't noticed until now, stood the woman from the basement. Only this time, she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Lila. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, that maybe I was still shaken from the diary. But when I blinked, she was still there, the woman in the mirror. Her face wasn't angry. It wasn't even ghostly. It was sad, like she was trying to say something, but the glass was keeping her in. Lila, I whispered, don't move. She didn't respond. She just kept staring into the mirror, her breathing slowing, until it almost stopped. The candlelight flickered again, and for a split second, the reflection shifted. The woman's hand lifted, palm flat against the inside of the glass. And then, Lila did the same. I felt my stomach drop. Lila, no. I grabbed her shoulder, but her skin felt ice cold. She didn't even flinch. Her eyes had gone glassy, like she wasn't really in there anymore. Then she whispered something, so soft I almost didn't hear it. She's lonely. It wasn't Lila's voice. Her tone was lower, trembling, old, like someone else was using her mouth to speak. Lila, I said again, louder this time. What did you say? She blinked once, slow, then turned to me with that same distant look. She's been waiting for someone to listen. I took a step back. The air in the room felt heavy, like the oxygen had turned to dust. Who's she? Lila smiled faintly, only it wasn't her smile. Eleanor. The name echoed around the room. Not from her, not from me, from everywhere. It was like the house itself whispered it back, through the walls, through the floor, through the flickering candlelight. Eleanor, Eleanor, Eleanor. Lila tilted her head slightly, like she was hearing something I couldn't. Then she said, still in that not quite her voice, you shouldn't have read it aloud. I felt my pulse hammering in my ears. What happens if I did? She looked right through me, eyes unfocused. She can hear you now. The mirror behind her started to ripple. Not shatter, not crack, just ripple, like water disturbed by a drop. The woman's reflection smiled. And when she did, her lips moved in perfect sync with Lila's. She remembers you. I grabbed Lila by both arms and shook her hard. Snap out of it. Lila, listen to me. But her head lolled slightly, like she was trying to wake from a dream. Her voice came out broken, overlapping, half her tone, half something older. The house was never hers. She was just the keeper. She thought she could contain it. She failed. What are you talking about? I demanded. What's it? Lila turned slowly toward the diary still open on the table. The pages were flipping on their own now, fast, violent, until they stopped at one. The ink was still wet. It spelled just one sentence. It wants a name. I didn't understand. Not yet. But the air suddenly grew colder. My breath came out in fog, and I realized the woman in the mirror wasn't fading. She was coming closer. The glass began to bulge outward, as if something was pushing from the other side. I could see her face pressing against it, her eyes hollow, her mouth open like she was screaming, but no sound came out. Lila clutched her head and started to shake. She's inside. I can hear her. I reached for her, but the candle on the table flared violently, spilling wax across the floor. The flame burned blue. The diary caught fire. I yelled and tried to put it out, but the flames didn't spread like normal fire. They moved upward, twisting into shapes, curling into letters that burned themselves into the wall above the mirror. Say my name. The walls began to tremble. The mirror cracked, a single line running straight down the center. Lila dropped to her knees, crying out in a voice that wasn't her own. She wants to live again. And then everything went still. No sound, no light, just blackness. I thought I'd passed out, until I realized I could still hear Lila breathing somewhere in the dark. A whisper brushed my ear. One of you must stay. I spun around, my flashlight flickering back to life, just long enough to see the mirror now shattered completely. But there was something written across the shards, not in ink, not in blood. It looked like frost. My name, over and over. Lila stood up behind me. Her eyes were wrong, pupils dilated, almost completely black. She smiled softly. She knows your name now, and the voice that said it wasn't Lila's. The room was covered in frost and glass dust, and the air, it wasn't just cold anymore. It was alive. Like the whole house had started breathing with us. Lila stood still, her head tilted just slightly to one side. Her eyes weren't normal. They shimmered, almost reflecting light that wasn't there. She didn't look at me. She looked through me, and then she smiled. Not her usual half-grin. Something too calm. Lila, I whispered, please tell me that's you. No response. But then, faintly from behind me came a low hum. Guys, it was Mark. He'd been so quiet this whole time, I'd almost forgotten he was still with us. He was standing near the stairs, flashlight shaking in his hand. What the hell happened to her? He asked, his voice cracking. I don't know, I said. She's not right. That's when Lila started laughing. It wasn't loud, just soft, broken laughter. Like she was remembering something funny from a long time ago. And then, between giggles, she whispered. She doesn't like it when you say her name. I froze. Ooh. Lila's head snapped toward me so fast it made a popping sound. Her eyes rolled white for half a second before focusing back, but it wasn't her anymore. "Eleanor," she said, "you shouldn't have said it." The lights flickered once, then again, and I swear, for just a moment, every shadow in that room loomed closer. Handle the walls start to move. Mark swore under his breath and ran to the window, trying to force it open. It didn't budge. None of them did. Every door we tried led back into the same hallway, or a room we'd already been in. It was like the house had rearranged itself. The walls pulsed faintly, like there was something crawling beneath the wallpaper. Every time the lights flickered, I caught glimpses of shapes, faces, maybe pressed against the inside of the walls. Not moving, just watching. Mark started pounding on one of the boarded windows, shouting for help, even though we both knew no one was coming. The nearest house was half a mile away. "Stop," I shouted, but he didn't. He hit it again, the wood splintered, and something grabbed him. A pale arm shot out from the space between the boards, fingers too long, pulling him forward. He screamed, a short, sharp sound, and I grabbed him by the jacket, yanking back with everything I had. The arm let go, but not before dragging deep scratches across his neck. He stumbled back, panting, bleeding. "Something's in the walls," he gasped. Lila tilted her head again. "She's everywhere," she whispered. "She's part of the house." And the way she said it wasn't warning us. It was proud. We tried the stairs next, the only thing we hadn't attempted. Mark went first, still clutching his flashlight and muttering under his breath. The wood groaned under our weight. Each step creaked louder than the one before. Halfway up, the light flickered again, and when it came back on, the stairs behind us were gone. Not broken, not collapsed, just gone. The lowest was nothing but black. I could feel the air moving from down there, slow and rhythmic, like breathing. Mark turned around, eyes wide. "Tell me you see that." I nodded, because I did, and I wished I didn't. At the bottom of the void, something was moving. Not fast, not violent, just waiting. We reached the landing. There were 3 doors. Each one looked exactly the same. Old brass handles, peeling paint, the faint smell of mold and dust. "Pick one," Mark said. His voice was shaking. "We're not staying here." I pointed to the one on the right. That one. He opened it and froze. It wasn't a room. It was a hallway. The same one we just left. Same paintings. Same cracked wallpaper. Except, this time there were 4 doors. Behind us, Lila started humming again. It was that same old tune we'd heard on the record player earlier, the lullaby. But now it echoed through the walls, multiplied, distorted, until it sounded like a choir of voices humming in unison. Mark covered his ears. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" He slammed one of the doors shut, but the humming only grew louder. And then, without warning, Lila screamed. A raw, piercing scream that didn't sound human. We turned just in time to see her body lift off the ground, her feet dangling a few inches above the floor. Her eyes glowed white. She said only one can leave. And just like that, the humming stopped. Silence again. Thick, unbearable silence. Then the house whispered. "Choose. Perfect. We're entering the final act now." This will be Chapter 7, The Final Escape, Section 1. the breaking point. Tone, dark, breathless, first-person narration like a YouTube creepypasta voiceover. Every sentence should feel like a memory being relived, the tension rising until it's unbearable. We'll build this part to around 3,000 words, divided naturally into beats of panic, betrayal, and the horrifying unraveling of trust between the friends. Jack-o'-lantern Chapter 7, The Final Escape. Section 1, The Breaking Point. You ever notice how silence can be louder than noise? That kind of silence that presses down on you, where your heartbeat starts sounding like footsteps. That's what it felt like right after the mirror shattered. The room was covered in frost and glass dust, and the air, it wasn't just cold anymore. It was alive, like the whole house had started breathing with us. Lila stood still, her head tilted just slightly to one side. Her eyes weren't normal. They shimmered, almost reflecting light that wasn't there. She didn't look at me. She looked through me, and then she smiled. Not her usual half-grin, something too calm. "Lila," I whispered, "please tell me that's you." No response, but then, faintly from behind me, came a low hum. Guys, it was Mark. He'd been so quiet this whole time, I'd almost forgotten he was still with us. He was standing near the stairs, flashlight shaking in his hand. "What the hell happened to her?" he asked, his voice cracking. I don't know," I said. She's not right." That's when Lila started laughing. It wasn't loud, just soft, broken laughter, like she was remembering something funny from a long time ago. And then, between giggles, she whispered, "She doesn't like it when you say her name." I froze. "Who?" Lila's head snapped toward me so fast it made a popping sound. Her eyes rolled white for half a second before focusing back. But it wasn't her anymore. "Eleanor," she said, "you shouldn't have said it." The lights flickered once, then again, and I swear for just a moment, every shadow in that room leaned closer. Handle the walls start to move. Mark swore under his breath and ran to the window, trying to force it open. It didn't budge. None of them did. Every door we tried led back into the same hallway, or a room we'd already been in. It was like the house had rearranged itself. The walls pulsed faintly, like there was something crawling beneath the wallpaper. Every time the lights flickered, I caught glimpses of shapes, faces, maybe pressed against the inside of the walls, not moving, just watching. Mark started pounding on one of the boarded windows, shouting for help, even though we both knew no one was coming. The nearest house was half a mile away. "Stop," I shouted, but he didn't. He hit it again, the wood splintered and something grabbed him. A pale arm shot out from the space between the boards, fingers too long, pulling him forward. He screamed a short, sharp sound, and I grabbed him by the jacket, yanking back with everything I had. The arm let go, but not before dragging deep scratches across his neck. He stumbled back, panting, bleeding. "Something's in the walls," he gasped. Lila tilted her head again. "She's everywhere," she whispered. "She's part of the house." And the way she said it wasn't warning us. It was proud. So the house reacts. We tried the stairs next, the only thing we hadn't attempted. Mark went first, still clutching his flashlight and muttering under his breath. The wood groaned under our weight. Each step creaked louder than the one before. Halfway up, the light flickered again, and when it came back on, the stairs behind us were gone. Not broken, not collapsed, just gone. Below us was nothing but black. I could feel the air moving from down there, slow and rhythmic, like breathing. Mark turned around, eyes wide. "Tell me you see that." I nodded, because I did, and I wished I didn't. At the bottom of the void, something was moving. Not fast, not violent, just waiting. We reached the landing. There were 3 doors. Each one looked exactly the same. Old brass handles, peeling paint, the faint smell of mold and dust. "Pick one," Mark said. His voice was shaking. "We're not staying here." I pointed to the one on the right. "That one." He opened it and froze. It wasn't a room. It was a hallway. The same one we'd just left. Same paintings. Same cracked wallpaper. Except, this time there were 4 doors. Behind us, Lila started humming again. It was that same old tune we'd heard on the record player earlier, the lullaby. But now it echoed through the walls, multiplied, distorted, until it sounded like a choir of voices humming in unison. Mark covered his ears. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" He slammed one of the doors shut, but the humming only grew louder. And then, without warning, Lila screamed. A raw, piercing scream that didn't sound human. We turned just in time to see her body lift off the ground, her feet dangling a few inches above the floor. Her eyes glowed white. She said only one can leave. And just like that, the humming stopped. Silence again. Thick, unbearable silence. Then the house whispered. "Choose. Drop of blood to choice." We didn't know where it came from. It was like the words were in our heads, not in the air. Mark looked at me wild-eyed. "What does it mean?" I shook my head, backing away. "I don't know. I'm not." "She said only one can leave," Lila repeated, her voice distant and flat. Something inside me broke then. Fear turned into anger. "Stop talking like that." I shouted. "You're not her. Lila, fight it." But she only smiled, that same calm, wrong smile, and said, "She's already decided." The door behind her slammed shut on its own. The floorboards creaked beneath us, and I realized the house wasn't just shaking, it was shrinking. The hallway was literally getting narrower, the walls pressing in. We started running. Doors on both sides opened as we passed, and inside each one, I saw something I'll never forget. The 3 of us, over and over, in different positions, different times, sometimes screaming, sometimes already dead. Mark tripped, falling to his knees. I turned to help him, but Lila was already standing behind him. Her hand was raised, trembling, and in it a shard of the mirror. "Lila, don't." Her eyes flicked toward me, and for half a second, I swear I saw her again. The real Lila. She mouthed one word, "Run." Then she drove the shard into her own neck. Mark screamed, lunging forward, catching her before she fell. Blood pooled instantly, too fast, too much. Her lips moved again, but no sound came out. She was gone. The walls went still. The lights dimmed, and for a moment I thought maybe it was over. But then, the floor beneath us opened, like the house exhaled, and we were the dust. We fell, straight into black. When I woke up, I was on the basement floor again. Same damp air, same smell, but the walls looked different now. They weren't stone anymore. They were flesh, pale and veined, pulsing faintly, like the house had become alive in the most literal way possible. Mark was beside me, barely conscious. "Where's Lila?" he whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't have to, because from the far corner of the room, she stepped out, or something that looked like her did. Her face was pale, her neck marked by a faint line of light where the glass had pierced her, but she was standing, smiling. "I told you," she said softly. "Only one can leave." I don't remember how long we were in that house after Lila started changing. Time didn't feel like time anymore. The mirrors, the whispers, the shadows, they were all closing in, and I could feel my heart hammering like it was trying to escape my chest. Lila's eyes were completely black now. Not her reflection, her actual eyes. And she wasn't speaking in her voice anymore. It was Eleanor. "She wants you," Lila whispered. Or maybe I heard it wrong. Maybe it wasn't whispering. Maybe it was the house, or the mirrors, or the air itself. I pulled at her arm. "Come on, we're leaving. Now." She smiled. Her lips weren't human anymore. "You can't leave," she said. And for a split second, I could see the woman behind her, Eleanor, standing taller, her cracked porcelain skin gleaming in the flickering candlelight. Panic hit me like ice water. I yanked Lila forward, trying to make her run. But it was useless. The hallway behind us twisted. Doors became walls. Walls became doors. Ceilings stretched up, the floor dropped away in places. And every time I thought I saw the exit, it vanished. And then I heard it, Sam. "Hey, over here." He was shouting from somewhere ahead. I didn't know how far, didn't know if he was real or just another reflection. But I ran toward the sound anyway, dragging Lila with me. We stumbled into what looked like the foyer again. The front door was finally there. Relief hit me, sharp and sudden. I lunged for it. Then Lila screamed. Her head twisted unnaturally toward me. Her hands shot out like claws, grabbing my shoulders. I almost fell backward. "You can't leave me," she hissed. And I realized she didn't mean herself. She meant the house. Eleanor's face was behind her now, emerging through the cracks in her skin, smiling wider than any human mouth should. I shoved her away, hard, and she flew across the room like a rag doll. I didn't care. I didn't stop to check. I ran. Sam appeared in front of me, just in time. "Come on." We bolted through the hallway. The floorboards creaked, moaned, and shifted under our feet. I could hear the mirrors shattering behind me, cracking sounds echoing like screams. We reached the stairs, the main exit stairs, the one we thought would finally get us out of the nightmare. And that's when I realized Lila wasn't following. I spun around. She was gone. Just gone. No warning. No struggle. Nothing. I screamed her name, my voice cracking. "Lila. Lila." Sam grabbed me by the arm. "No, we don't have time." I tried to fight him off, but something in me knew he was right. The house was alive. It wanted a name, and it wasn't letting her go. We ran down the stairs toward the front door. The wind hit us as soon as we stepped outside, cold, sharp, like we'd been underwater and just surfaced. The moon was bright, almost mocking in its clarity. The house loomed behind us, silent now, but I could feel it. It knew my name. It had touched Lila, and I knew it would come for me next. Sam, and I didn't speak as we ran down Willow Creek Road. I didn't look back, not once, but every time I breathed, I could hear her voice in the back of my mind. Not Lila's, not mine, hers. She remembers you. You ever try to sleep after being chased by something that isn't real? I don't mean nightmares. I mean something real enough to touch, smell, feel in your bones, but impossible to prove. That was me. Weeks after Willow Creek, I thought I left it behind. I thought leaving the house, leaving Lila, leaving the mirrors. I thought I escaped. I was wrong. It started small. At first, I thought I was imagining things. A creak in the hallway, a shadow that lingered too long in the corner of my room, a whisper so faint I could barely make it out. Remember me. I tried to laugh it off. Told myself it was just nerves, just my mind replaying Halloween over and over. But then the door appeared. I was sitting in my room one evening, scrolling through my phone, trying to calm my racing thoughts. And there it was, a door, in my bedroom, that hadn't been there before. It wasn't old or warped or dusty. It was pristine, clean, as if it had been built for me. And it was slightly ajar. I froze. I didn't want to open it. I didn't want to look through it. But someone was calling me. A whisper, low and familiar, brushing the back of my neck. Come back. I reached for the knob. My hand trembled. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to destroy it, to leave the house behind. But I had to know. I opened it, and there it was, the house. Not in my town, not on Willow Creek, but inside the door. I could see the mirrors, the hallway, the cracked floors, Lila's shadow in the corner, and Eleanor standing at the top of the stairs, watching me. Her eyes, empty, endless, knowing, met mine through the gap. And she smiled. I've been waiting. I slammed the door shut. I bolted to the kitchen. I locked it, chained it, but I knew it would come back, because the house isn't just a place. It's alive. It remembers. It waits. And now it knows my name. Every night, I hear it in my sleep. A soft knock at the bedroom door. The floorboards creaking like the house itself is walking through my walls. And every morning, I wake up hoping it's a dream. It's not. And deep down, I know it will never stop. The Willow Creek House doesn't stay in one place. It follows. It waits. And one day, I might be too tired to run.